So hello, Nell. It is such an honor to have you as a guest on the Paleo Gardening Expert Interview.
Thank you for inviting me, Lynn. It's a pleasure to be here.
So Nell Stephenson is author of the book Paleoista, and she has co-authored the Paleo Diet Cookbook with Dr. Lauren Cordain. Her business, Paleoista, equips individuals and corporate teams with the tools they need to embrace paleo lifestyle. I want to thank you for coming on board with us and doing this today.
Oh, I appreciate the opportunity, and thanks for reaching out. I was particularly interested in what you had to say because it was different from some of the other inquiries I get because nobody has reached out regarding doing paleo gardening. I just thought that was such a simple yet cool fundamental concept that more people need to take advantage of.
Yeah, I agree, and that's my background is gardening, and, you know, I've done this for 28 years. And even eating organic food and stuff, I still didn't reach my peak health until I added the Paleo Feast in. And I'm like, oh my gosh, people need to know this. This is so cool. So Nell, how would you explain Paleoista to anyone who's unfamiliar with your work?
My brand is designed to show people how easy and simple it is to take matters into our own hand and get control of our health simply by determining what we're going to be eating. And the premise of paleo is that if we follow a diet which is, by nature, anti-inflammatory and alkaline forming, consisting of a large amount of healthy, local and seasoned produce, primarily vegetables, balanced out with wild proteins and healthy fats, we're eating what we're meant to be eating genetically, and as a result, we can guarantee that we're going to be in much better health than if we fall prey to the typical standard American diet.
I totally agree with that. You know, I have a sheep flock, and I would never feed my sheep flock Twinkies. It just doesn't make sense. So it's like,
right.
Why would I feed that to my kids? And with the sheep, it's always about what is best genetically for their health. And I think that's a beautiful thing that you guys are looking at. What's best for our genetics, not what tastes good today.
Exactly, and that's actually the key, is that it doesn't have to be a disconnect between what tastes good and what's good for us. They can actually be enjoyed simultaneously, and that's one of the main misconceptions people have, is the idea that you're either going to have to choose between being on a diet and maybe being very restrictive and maybe not enjoying what you're eating. But the problem with that is there's a finite endpoint, and it's not sustainable for long term. And in comparison, the paleo approach is something that you can do for your life, and it's healthy and satisfying. The food is delicious, and you feel great. So there's really no downside to it.
I agree. We were on a gluten-free, dairy-free diet, and when we switched to paleo, it actually opened up more meals to us than the gluten-free, dairy-free diet. And every night when we eat dinner, we're like, wow, we're so lucky we're paleo because this tastes so good. So how much fun is that? Cool.
I totally agree. It's not about focusing on what you can't have, but what you can have. And I was the same. I was first gluten-free for a year, feeling better than prior to eating gluten, but sort of not feeling amazing until I cut out all the grains and all the dairy and all the legumes, and then realizing that I really feel the best that I've ever felt just eating lots of vegetables, healthy proteins, and healthy fats.
So how has your personal journey to health affected the way that you're helping others?
Well, I think I've always been interested in nutrition and healthy eating, and as long as I can remember, always been active and athletic. But I think it becomes personal when you experience something challenging through your own journey, and then finding a result after being sick for a very long period of time, having that personal connection to identifying with something that's unfortunately very common with a lot of other people, which is, for my personal background, it was GI distress since the time I was a very young child. Eating a healthy diet, but still being plagued with stomach issues as long as I can remember, which got worse and worse to the point where I was regularly going to specialists and emergency room visits in my early 20s. And it really took becoming my own detective and figuring out that the cause of all of it was primarily gluten, but also soy and dairy. And once I had the information to remove these foods from my diet and be able to proactively choose the foods that make me feel great, I was able to take matters into my own hand and recreate my future health. And I think that, the main message that I want people to know when I work with them, whether I'm working with a local client who might be trying to lose weight or I'm working with an online client thousands of miles away who is trying to work with me in conjunction with their doctor, trying to improve their symptoms of autoimmune disease, for example. There's not a one-size-fits-all. However, the one-size-fits-all component is that we can all feel better and take matters into our own hands when we realize that the impact of what we're eating, how much of a difference it can make on our health.
So what is your vision for the future of Paleoista?
My vision is I want to continue to educate people, whether it's, like I said before, working with clients locally, whether it's on a platform where I'm working with corporations, or even something as simple as people that are looking at my blog every day, which is a free source of information. I just want people to understand that we can't rely on what we're taught in school, not even what our doctors are telling us. In fact, most of the doctors that the model that we have these days is not even that reliable when it comes to nutrition, because a lot of the doctors that we see don't have a nutrition training. Quite unfortunate that there's such a disconnect between what we're eating and how we're feeling. But the bottom line is we really need to self-educate and learn what we're eating, where is it coming from, and the effects that it has on our body. And that's something that I think we all need to really be proactive about. So my vision is that I want to continue to be a source of information for people and to really just empower them to understand the significance of how much what they're eating is going to play a role into how they're feeling.
Are there any exciting projects you are working on right now to achieve that vision?
Oh, absolutely. I continue to write on a daily basis. I've been blogging every single day since 2007, and I've written 5 books. The last 3 were published by HarperCollins, a series of 3 books, little cookbooks focusing on the 3 areas that I found clients to have the most difficulty with regard to eating. I find that a lot of people get the hang of what to eat for lunch and dinner, but sometimes they get confused what to eat for breakfast if they're not having oatmeal, and what about snacks if they're not having those energy bars, and also what to eat around the time of a workout. So that was the most recent collection of books I did, which came out in January. It's available on an ebook in the U.S. and then in print in Australia. And then I just launched an app, which is a meal planning app last year, and I've got almost 20 different plans to be able to suit people of different backgrounds, different lifestyles, different sports, different health conditions. And I will continue to do my blog and work with clients, again, locally, globally, as well as continue to focus on other platforms of outreach to just connect with people and really help them understand what healthy living is all about. And you can call it paleo or call it healthy living. I want people to understand that it's really just about, it's very simple. I often have a phrase which is 4 letters, and I tell people to try it all the time, which is just eat, food, and move. And the bottom line is no matter what state of health or lack thereof you're beginning in, if you eat real, pure, unadulterated, fresh food and you move, you're going to be in a better state of health than if you don't.
So what are the most common paleo diet misconceptions that you hear, and how do you answer them?
Unfortunately, with the growing popularity of paleo, so too have the misconceptions grown accordingly. Many things that I see include things like people thinking that paleo equals the Atkins diet, where you're eating lots of protein, not enough fiber, or possibly no carbohydrates at all. Another one, which is that you can eat unlimited amounts of fat, or that you're supposed to be eating bacon all the time. And all these things they might come from a place where they're kind of accurate, but they get taken out of context. Another really common one is the idea that you can create a treat using paleo ingredients like dates or honey or that type of thing. But again, taken out of context, it really skews the whole nature of what paleo is really all about. So, for example, if you make a treat out of dates and honey and bananas and almond flour instead of whole wheat flour and so on, it's one thing if it's for an occasion, it's a birthday or it's an anniversary or something like that. But the problem is when people try to recreate the standard American diet with a gluten-free, dairy-free version of it, they're still creating a concoction which is not healthy, not fresh, not necessarily alkaline, and then they're relying on that as a mainstay of their diet. And that's not the point. The point is eat fresh, local vegetables and wild protein and natural fat, and that's the premise of what this healthy eating approach is all about. And that's something that you'll hear me come back to quite a bit, but it really is that simple. So I think, with all these different misconceptions that have come out there, if somebody's trying their approach independently and they're not getting the results they want, maybe they're not losing weight or their skin isn't clearing up or they haven't found relief from their autoimmune disease, really need to take a good hard look at what you're actually eating. And if you're seeing things like, I'm eating paleo bread every day, paleo pancake recipe, I'm making paleo date honey oat bars, I mean, all these different things. If that's what you're doing, it's not really paleo. It's kind of a version of paleo, which is possibly less offensive to the body than the standard gluten-rich American diet, but not necessarily what the premise is all about. So I think, it's kind of a common sense reality check that needs to come into play. And if it sounds too good to be true, some kind of a magic bullet approach, that's not what it is.
Yeah, I had that experience. When I first went on paleo, I'm like, oh my gosh, how do I make brownies? How do I make this? How do I make that? But then after I was on the paleo diet for a while, I'm like, I'm just as happy with a cucumber or, something more simple. And it's like we weaned our family off of those sweet treats, things that you make that are paleo. But, yeah, I agree. They need to just be special treats. And we quit snacking at night and stuff because we got the meats and the fats balanced. And
it's not about recreating the standard American diet. Your palate actually changes. If you remove the sugar, you don't have that craving that you feel like you must have a sweet, you must have a treat. You actually just have a very balanced blood sugar level. If you do a good job exercising before you eat and you plan your meals properly and the proper macronutrient ratios, you can allow your body to become more fat adapted. In other words, to use fat as a fuel more than carbohydrate, which helps you reduce your chance of later becoming pre-diabetic. I mean, the benefits just go on and on and on.
And my energy level through the roof. It's so amazing. I was definitely sugar addicted when I went on.
Oh, most people are, I think.
Because I was gluten-free, dairy-free, but that didn't matter. I was still sugar addicted. And coming off the sugar, my blood sugar used to spike every 2 or 3 hours I would have to eat. And now it's like 6 hours later, and I forgot that I haven't eaten. And it's like once my body switched to fat burning from sugar burning, there's been no stopping me. It's been a fantastic ride. On Paleo Gardening, our mission is to make the paleo lifestyle available to anyone by inspiring and teaching them practical skills. So how would you inspire someone who is just beginning their paleo journey?
Well, the thing is, people reach out to me because they know that what I do is primarily focused on paleo. So my approach is not sort of that I'm trying to find people and convince them that they need to try paleo, because I know how personal eating can be. I myself was vegan for 2 years. I tried the blood type diet. I tried the zone diet. I tried all these different things. And when you really fully immerse yourself in the culture of any of those particular diets, you have to believe in what you're doing, otherwise it's not going to work. So, for example, when I was vegan, if at the point in time somebody had told me that I should start eating meat, I wouldn't have given them the time of day, because for that 2-year period, I felt what I was doing was morally, ethically, physically the right thing to do. So it's not more of a positioning where I'm trying to convince people, like, you've got to try this paleo diet. It's more people have made the connection that there's something with what they're eating that's affecting how they're feeling, whether they simply just don't have enough energy throughout the day, or more serious things like they're having migraine headaches all the time, or they've developed an autoimmune condition. So it's more about putting the two things together, and that creates a situation where you're proactively wanting to eliminate foods to see what's making you feel good. When a person still is in this space of having a disconnect between how they're feeling and what they're eating, it's much more difficult for them to successfully and long-term implement the paleo approach. And I find this with clients who might have heard about what I do and are interested in losing weight because they might have seen one of the erroneous things in the media about how such and such actor followed the paleo diet to lose a significant amount of weight and get ripped for a role that he or she had in the film, which can be the case. But when somebody doesn't have the connection between what they're eating and how they're feeling, and they approach it just as a diet, it kind of falls into the category of any other diet that somebody might do for a short-term quick fix. So it's more about really understanding how the body works from a simple point of view, and just common sense. Does it really make sense that you should be, not eating anything and doing a cleanse for 5 days? Does it really make sense that some pill you're going to take is going to be a healthy way to lose weight rapidly for a permanent fix? Or does it make sense that even though it might feel frustrating that you're trying to lose weight and you've got 50 pounds to lose, And the idea that you're losing only 1 pound a week might be irritating, but if you're losing 1 pound a week successfully, safely, that's going to stay off, and you're enjoying the food you're eating, that's a much better route to take than something that's not healthy.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, just people using a little bit of common sense, thinking about, the plan that they're going to approach on. That's great. So as we were emailing back and forth to set up this interview, you mentioned getting ready to put in some vegetable beds. So how's that going?
It's great. My husband and I did a small remodel in the house, and part of that is totally revamping the yard. And as much as I've been cooking since I was 4, and as much as I love what I do, I teach cooking, I teach obviously nutrition, I don't actually have my own garden. So that's why I was interested in particular to your inquiries to be on your show, because that's something that I'm new to. And so I thought it would be kind of interesting to just kind of hear from your perspective, kind of a good rule of thumb for starting a garden when you're in a climate such as I'm in Los Angeles. I'm kind of spoiled as far as what I believe I'll be able to grow, but I thought it would be kind of cool to get your 2 cents on that. What you suggest I start gardening with, but I know I'm thinking offhand I definitely want to have some tomatoes, because in my opinion that's one fruit that most people have not had the opportunity to taste a garden fresh tomato, and I think that's one of the most difficult things to get a good specimen of. So definitely thinking of some tomato and some herbs and lettuces, but would maybe like to get a little bit more fine-tuned on what you'd suggest.
Oh my gosh, Los Angeles, you can grow everything. That's so cool.
Exactly.
I usually start the basis with greens, because that's the easiest to grow. You can have something in a few weeks and kind of get your feet wet with that. And then, the starter garden usually includes tomatoes and cucumbers and a few other salad items. And those are always great things to start with. And you're right, there's nothing better than a garden fresh tomato. I love beginners because they don't have any preconceptions or bad gardening habits. So what we do is we take people into our system that makes gardening totally organic, very productive, easy, weed-free. And there's certain practices that we do, just like you would on your paleo diet. There's practices that we do in our gardening that make it that quick and easy. And these are things that I've developed over the 28 years that I've been farming out here. We're in Colorado, so it's a little trickier for us. But I had to do it out of necessity because I'm 5'1", 100 pounds, and I'm running 20,000 square feet of garden. And I have a couple of helpers. But it's like everything had to be easy and light and, something that I could do without, an army of men around. So it's a great system. It's developed wonderfully over the years, and we're now ready to share it with the world, which I am super excited to share it with paleo people because they care about what they're eating. And like you said, they're inspired to grow this, to do this. And once we get them growing, once they get successful, we start with a really small garden, and we work our way up with them. The sky's the limit. It's amazing what they'll be able to produce. And they're spending their time planting and harvesting and not fighting the soil, fighting the weeds. So it's pretty neat. I'm so enjoying this and getting people going and getting the pictures and the feedback from people that have started in their gardens. And we do that. We help people start any time of the year.
I think that's such a cool thing, and I mentioned to you prior to our doing the call that one of the other misconceptions people have about a paleo approach is that it has to be very expensive. And it certainly can be, but it doesn't have to be. And one of the key top 5 things that I suggest people do when they are under the impression it's got to be too expensive is to start their own garden, whether it's your own garden in your yard, or maybe it's a community garden if you don't actually have the space, or sometimes it's an urban garden on the top of a building if you live in New York City or something like that. But the bottom line is not only is it more cost effective, but it's also effective in the sense that you can get the whole family involved. Studies show that if kids actually are involved in what they're eating, not just going to the grocery store and cooking, but if they actually grow what they're eating and they're following a good example given by their parents about eating properly and exercising, they're so much more likely to take those habits as their own, versus a model where you have parents saying, oh, well, my 2-year-old won't eat anything but pizza and chicken nuggets, to which I've got to reply, well, who's giving them the chicken nuggets and the pizza? You're giving them, and if they have a fuss because you take them away for a couple of days, they'll have a fuss and they'll have a little bit of a temper tantrum, but at the bottom line, at the end of the day, they're going to eat when they're hungry, and if their choices are fresh broccoli and grilled chicken and salad, and that's what you're eating, that's what they're going to eat too.
Yep, I totally agree with that. Our kids love all vegetables because that's what was on the table. It was great.
Exactly.
The other thing about gardening in your backyard, it gives you two more things. That one is variety. Like our leafy greens course, we're teaching people how to grow. I think there's like 10 or 12 different kinds of greens. We're doing Asian greens and, you know, things that'll grow in hot weather and cool weather. And so your diet then starts to vary and have a lot of different nutrients coming in from different directions. And the things you can't buy at the store. The only way you're going to get it is to grow it yourself. And then
Exactly.
the other piece is you're going to have control. We teach nutrient density and how to push that up in the vegetables. So the vegetables that you'll grow in your backyard are going to have more nutrient density than anything you can buy anywhere. And I teach people how to do that. So now you're in control of what's sprayed on it, how high the nutrients is. There's just so many control variables when you're growing your own food that there's no other food that's any better in the world than what's going to come right out of your backyard. So when you're ready, give me a holler and I'll help you get going.
For sure. Thanks, Lynn.
Your work has helped so many, and there are so many of us who would like to see you continue. So how can I stay involved with Paleoista?
Well, the best thing to do on a day-to-day basis is to read the blog, for sure. That's a free resource that's available always. And I have a newsletter that comes out once a week, which is kind of like a weekly recap of what I've been blogging about. I always welcome people to send me an inquiry through my website if they have a question about something I've written about, or if they want to know, how do I do this or how do I do that? And I do offer consultations, and again, locally as well as online for people that want to possibly buy one of my plans and learn how to tailor it to suit their needs, or people that have read a little bit about paleo and they want to sift through what's real, what's fact versus fiction, and also just keeping track of the media. I have different things that people can follow. I have a YouTube channel where I do some cooking classes, and I've got a whole bunch of different media links. People can look at the guest appearances on the Dr. Oz show and some of the other media opportunities that I've had the chance to partake in. So lots of different ways to keep in touch. People can reach out to me through my website, and again, make sure to check out my series of download meal plans, which are only $9.99. So that's a great amount that'll fit anybody's budget, which is a nice template for what to eat when. Easy preparation tips and shopping list. So you can find that all at my website, paleoista.com.
Thank you for taking the time to share Paleoista with the Paleo Gardening community. To learn more about Paleoista, by clicking the links in the description or by visiting paleoista.com. It was a pleasure having you on the Paleo Gardening Expert Interview, and I want you to have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Lynn. Same to you.